Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. So what was your reaction when you heard the words of Cliven Bundy and Donald Sterling describing what they think of black people? Did it make you mad, sad, disgusted, ambivalent? Did you agree? In this so-called post-racial America, why does racism rear its ugly head so frequently? Our Another View Roundtable pundits are here. Wil, Bill, Carol, and special guest Tim Seibles all have their thoughts, and they'll share them right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee, and on this beautiful Friday afternoon, I want to say a special hello to my granddaughter, Miss Patience Lorraine Eleanor Ham, is here today. She's visiting me here in Norfolk and is here at the station. And thank you, Kelly Jackson, for taking care of Patience while we were on the air today. So, hi, Patience. I hope you're doing good. And we also want to give a special congratulations to our intern, Denise Norris, because I think as we speak, she is graduating from Old Dominion University today. So congratulations to her. And a special hello to the women that I had the privilege of speaking to yesterday morning at the Tidewater Community College Women's Leadership Breakfast. It was in support of the Women's Center and their mentoring program there. And it was a marvelous time. And I so appreciate all of the love you all showed me. So thank you so very, very much for that. You know that there's a lot going on in Nigeria right now with the kidnapping of all the young girls from school. And there will be a prayer rally here in Hampton Roads tomorrow at Trinity Faith Diamond Church. That's at 1023 Deep Creek Boulevard in Chesapeake, and it starts at 10 a.m. and they're asking you to please wear red if you can to show your support. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. According to a 2013 Gallup poll on race relations, 72% of whites and 62% of African Americans polled rated race relations between whites and blacks as very good or somewhat good. Very encouraging news, right? Then along come folks like Cliven Bundy and Donald Sterling. And at least for me, I got that here we go again feeling. So I cannot wait to hear what our roundtable pundits thought. Wil LaVeist, he's a journalist, author, and talk show host. Hey, Will. Welcome back.
Barbara.
How you doing?
All right.
Good. Bill Thomas, he's our community activist. Hi, Bill.
I'm wonderful. Happy Mom's Day.
Thank you.
And I'm going to the Men's Center after this program.
Carol Pretlow, she's our political science professor from Norfolk State University. Hey, Carol.
Hi, Barbara. Good to be here as usual.
I know. Bill's starting already.
I'm trying to ignore him.
And we are so happy to have with us award-winning poet and professor at Old Dominion University, Tim Seibles. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Thank you for joining the roundtable today.
Oh, I've been hoping to be a part of this roundtable for a long time.
And we want you all to know that Roger Chesley and his beautiful wife, Michelle, and their family are in Miami celebrating the graduation of their daughter from the University of Miami. So that's why Roger's not here with us, but go Roger.
All right.
Go Roger.
Hey. One down,
Absolutely.
one more to go.
One down, one to go.
Enjoy South Beach.
Oh, gosh. So this whole thing, I want to start by getting from each of you. I really want your gut reaction when you heard the comments made by Cliven Bundy, who said, in essence, that, or wondered, in essence, if African Americans would have been better off as slaves, and Donald Sterling, who doesn't want his mixed race girlfriend to bring black people to his basketball games. Well, your gut reaction.
It was similar to yours. It was like, here we go again, and also that this is a good thing, because we've been talking about this a lot on this show, about institutional racism, systemic racism, and a lot of times people get confused or they don't understand the difference between racism and bigotry. And we've talked about that racism is basically bigotry with power. And so Sterling is the epitome of it. He's the absolute epitome of somebody who's in a position of power that can hire, fire people, determine who rises in an organization, who doesn't. And then to hear him talk, he's illustrating to his highest degree plantation politics. I can lay with a mixed woman. You know, we can do all this in private, in public. You don't show any of that. And that is exactly how it was on the plantation.
Okay, Bill, your reaction
I
when you
really
heard
don't-
it.
I really don't have any. It doesn't bother me. It's not going to change my day. Institutionalized racism does exist. This is not institutionalized racism. This is just a media flop. I mean, this man has been this way all his life. He's not white. He's Jewish. And people knew what he was doing. He's been doing it forever. And the only reason that, you know, it's really hypocritical. It truly is. For these millionaire basketball player, Magic Johnson, what's he doing with that little woman anyhow? He's a married man. So, you know, I don't take it. It's really simple. It tells us, and I agree with this on Will's side, that on this racism bit, it's on the white side and the black side. If these millionaire basketball players had any common economic sense, they would have bought a basketball team collectively together, or even the whole entire league. They would also make sure that the institutions that funded the first African-American players in their league to give them the prosperity that they have were historically black colleges and universities. And when they saw these institutions floundering, and with the Supreme Court thing and no more affirmative action, that they would resource their resources back to that. This is idiotic. And I'm just telling you, just my standpoint on Magic Johnson and all the rest of these people, I think they are just as big as racists as this man is, because how many white women were they dating?
Okay.
No, with Magic
Hold
Johnson,
on,
10,000 or more, and none of y'all said anything.
Okay, and I want to come back to that. I just wanted your gut reaction, though. I got it.
Sounds to me like he did have a reaction.
Exactly.
I've got no reaction.
Carol, your gut reaction when you heard it.
My gut reaction was somewhat disappointment. But on the other hand, being a realist, I understand that there is the public persona of everything being equal and we can go where we want to go. But undercover, I have always wondered, what is it that people say behind closed doors? And these comments were exactly what they were. Racism now displayed, and it showed us that it's not gone. It's still here.
Tim.
Well, I was going to say that, I mean, you know, of course you take it, it's insulting, of course, initially, but Cliven Bundy and this guy Sterling are old men, and they represent what I think is a dying perspective on race. Absolutely. This is not to say there are not young racists in the world. That's not what I'm saying. But I am suggesting that my response was some irritation, but also I just thought these are two pretty pathetic old white dudes who, you just kind of shrug your shoulders at them now and think, you're just waiting for them to go extinct kind of thing. So I didn't have a violent reaction to the statements. I just thought, I'm aware that white people, of course, such as these men exist. I just, just hadn't heard from them for a while. So it was a little surprising, a little irritating, but beyond that, you think they...
Okay, let's do this then. Since Mr. Bundy's comments were almost about a month ago since the last time we got together, let's listen to what he said, and let's talk about that situation first, and then we'll get to Mr. Sterling.
I want to tell you one more thing I know about the Negro. The older people and the kids, and there's always at least a half a dozen people sitting on the porch. They didn't have nothing to do. They didn't have nothing for their kids to do. They didn't have nothing for their young girls to do. And because they were basically on government subsidy, and so now what do? They abort their young children. They put their young men in jail because they never learned how to pick cotton. And I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves picking cotton, having family life and doing things, or are they better off under government subsidy?
Carol, the majority, when you listen to it again, it does bring a chuckle because it's so sad.
It's sad, but it's confusing because I was wondering, was he providing analogies, particularly with that picking cotton? First of all, who picks cotton anymore? There's machinery that does that. Second of all, the farming community is disappearing in the United States. So, I mean, what century does this man live under? And was he trying to be controversial?
No, he lives in the 21st century. They're picking cotton in India. They're picking cotton in China. And what I think he
but we
said.
live in the United States.
Oh yeah, but now we're not global. Now we're United States of America.
No, that's not what I meant.
Let me make my point with this man. When he's talking about picking cotton, and he's racist, and he's old, and he's going to go, and that whole thing is a legacy that's dying off. But what I thought he meant, if you listen to it carefully, is that the folks don't have a trade, and so they can't do any work. And then, see, you guys don't want to be honest. I'm going to be honest. You want to follow me up down 28th Street or go down there in the east end of Newport News, you're going to see people sitting on porches, not doing anything, and then y'all going to sit. You don't believe it's happening, Mrs. Carol?
I believe that there are people who are underprivileged and who have not been able, this is not an excuse, but maybe they have not been able to find employment. Maybe there are circumstances that mean that they cannot get into the workforce. I don't think anybody wants to be poor and unemployed. I don't think people say, "Oh, poverty's for me." No, I think that we have not have not used our resources to the best to help them. That's what I think.
And you disagree with that, obviously.
No, people are lazy.
But I want to bring up a point. I want to bring up a point that you brought up, Tim, and the whole idea of age and that they should get a pass. Because remember back when Paula Deen was making her comments and so forth, it was said, and I had a great conversation with a friend of mine about this, who was saying, because people said because she was from the South, that she should get a pass. And so this friend of mine who's from the North, from New York, was like, "Oh, so I can't say it, but she can?" No, that doesn't fly. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody gets a pass. I just thought they're old men and a certain kind of ignorance is dying out. Again, as I said, I think there's still racism, and speaking of institutionalized racism, there are probably, I would never say that there are no black people who are not doing their best. Sure, there are some who aren't trying as much as we wish they would, but that would be true of whites, browns, Asians, Americans. But I would say that certainly black people, more than many other people, do suffer from the challenges presented to them by institutionalized racism. I do think it is not as easy for young brothers and sisters to get jobs, even when they do want to work and they do want to do certain things. Again, as I said, there are people who maybe are not as motivated as we wish they were, but I would think that there are many, many people who find themselves frustrated in their ambitions because of institutionalized racism.
So if we know that it's wrong, that we agree that his statement and the way he put it, although you say, Bill, that there are some kernels of truth there, but why then should we get so upset when it's said, Will?
I'm not upset.
Well, I actually agree with Bill on this. This is a rare moment to capture this because you walk in the neighborhood. I was walking in the neighborhood the other day. You do certainly see people out in the front lawn, got their music out there, cooking and all of this kind of stuff. The problem and why we get upset and what's wrong is a lot of what Tim just said is that we attribute this to a particular group of people as if black people have a monopoly on this. And the point is, black people, this is what human beings do. If you put them in certain situations, this is what they will do. And the problem with these old guys saying this is that they're acting as if this is a black thing. It's not a black thing. If you go into any community where you have these kinds of social conditions, you're going to see white people sitting out on the front with their music out there and the banjo and making noise and all this kind of. You're going to see the same thing.
And the banjo.
So, yeah.
and the car parked up on the lawn.
Right. They're working on the car, the lawn. In the neighborhood, bring it down your whole values. You know what I mean? Painting the house pink, in the neighborhood.
It's true.
This is what people do. So the problem is when they associate, and that's exactly what racism is. It is this group of people does this and cannot ascend to any other level because they are black. And because they are black, they are less than human. And come on, this is ridiculous. There is no difference between us as human beings. No genetic, nothing. The Human Genome Project has eliminated that. It is simply your melanin in your skin is what determines. Your skin color has no more significance in who you are than your hair color.
Well, it's right.
Exactly.
Well, it's institutionalized racism. I believe it exists, but we're talking about it. This is the black program. We're addressing issues of the African American community. So we're not talking about white folks now. We're talking about black folks. And what gets me on the institutionalization of racism, Magic Johnson and Oprah Winfrey are just a bigger part of it. Because when this man, Mr. Sterling, was kicking out poor black people out of his apartments in Watts and in East End of in L.A., and the Latinos, and abusing them for years and years and years. Magic knew about it. All of these basketball players knew about it. And you know what the little poor black people saw them do about it? Nothing. They allowed this man to happen. But then when it got up to the power where they thought that they were going to be impacted, and then Mr. Magic Johnson is no different than a black man selling crack on the street, according to Mr. Sterling, because that's how he saw them. Then it became an issue. Now they're trying to steal this man's property. So that's what I agree with Will. This institutionalized racism, it used to be just white folks doing it. Now black folks are doing the same thing.
I was going to say also that
Some black.
But he was taken to court for his housing practices, wasn't he?
Yes.
I don't know who was driving that, whether that was any of black folks we would know of.
No,
but
they weren't.
Okay, but I'm just saying it'd be interesting to know what were the peripheral activities around his actions. I didn't know anything about Sterling till this thing emerged.
So here's the question then, and I think, Bill, you alluded to this. It's not an issue until it hits until it becomes an economic issue.
Yes.
Is that, Carol?
Yeah, I would agree, because obviously when you're thinking about this, economics determines class position and professional achievement and the whole 9 yards. So economics drives the whole thing. I think I'm with you, Bill, wondering what
That's two.
That's classic.
Yeah, I don't usually do this. Am I okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Wondering, when you reach a certain level, and of course I'll never be on Oprah's level, do you not feel some responsibility when you see things that are going wrong in our community to say, well, I have the resources now, I can help. Maybe I can do this. Or maybe collectively, when you look at the numbers of black men that are playing basketball, maybe we need to form our own league. Maybe we need to do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, see, what Carol was addressing, we talked about this before, and Tim will back me up on this. Carter G. Woodson talked about this in the miseducation of the nigga. He wasn't talking about miseducated poor black people. He was talking about the talented 10th and how they are perpetuating the same things.
And we don't want to face that.
Yeah.
But here's the
That was
question.
back in the 1930s.
Here's the question, and you guys can educate me on this, because, and Tim, I'm going to start with you. Because are there other groups of people who feel the responsibility to reach back? I mean, because we hear that a lot about African Americans who make it, who have a lot of resources and they don't give back. I don't necessarily hear that about other races. Is that something special to us, or am I just missing the point?
Well, the circumstances that black people have come to live in are different from the circumstances of most other people. I mean, the history of black folks in America is really distinct history. I do think I have some friends who are Native Americans, and I do think they are similarly invested in trying to protect tribal traditions, tribal languages, the young bloods, as they'll call them, trying to make them not fall prey to drugs, gangs, and so on. I think when you've been in a community that's been so heavily under siege, by institutionalized racism, all kinds of racism, God knows, I think there's a sense that if you turn your back on people who have not been able to rise to a certain level in this community, it's almost like you're perceived to some extent as being a traitor to the cause, capital C. Whether or not realistically every black person who is in middle class or up can spend half of their lives trying to reach back for other people, I don't know. It certainly is a concern of mine. One of the reasons I teach, of course. And when I taught in the inner city, I had, the same issues. You think, well, you want to be as helpful as you can, because you know that if you don't try, it's very easy that all the more folks of color will fall into certain traps, you know, so you want to be helpful. I just don't know that I could say to every millionaire black person that, well, you've got to be doing this and this and this and this. I don't know that we can fairly do that. I would like to think they would be naturally inclined to be helpful.
Okay. So rather than it being a mandate, so to speak,
that's,
they
I think
naturally
it's
inclined
hard.
I think Tim is on point with this. I mean, in my own experience, being from a Dominican mother and father who was born in New York, raised in the West Indies, and growing up in Brooklyn, in a very diverse community, I've been able to flow through a lot of different cultures and see that a lot of these same issues do exist, and these same concerns about, you know, helping your own people and moving forward. And Tim is right that our experience is so unique, so different from African Americans and Native Americans being very close, that a lot of these issues don't play out the same. So, for example, when I was the editor of Mixed Magazine, which is a multicultural publication here in Hampton Roads, it gave me a great opportunity to learn about the different cultures here and how other groups arrived to this area. Very different. The Asian Indians, the best and brightest, came from India and came in coming to school. The Filipino community, best and brightest, coming from the Philippines, coming in as nurses and doctors or in the military. So it's a very different setup. Folks from Laos or from Southeast Asia coming after the wars and coming here, it's a very different experience, and so it plays out differently.
So then, Carol, why is it that when black people try to express that, the fact that our experience is very different, that there's a lot of pushback, particularly from the white community, because they then want to say, no, we're all the same?
Well, I think a little bit, I'm not a psychologist, but I think that a lot of that is maybe guilt and feeling bad about what happened in the past and saying, okay, well, we have passed civil rights legislation, the Voting Rights Act, and all of that, and we're doing the best we can, and now you fail to acknowledge that. They're not seeing the subtleties, and they're like, well, what else do you want? What, you know? So I think that's a large. They feel guilty, but they don't know how to express it.
Bill,
people succeed and fail because of economics. We lost our stake in America in the 60s when they destroyed the Black Power revolt. They killed off all of our leaders. They took them all out. As an example, in Virginia, instead of allowing black leaders, men especially, to articulate through Virginia colleges and universities, they sent them all out all over the country, Mississippi, Minnesota. And you can go, there's Supreme Court jurists in Minnesota and Wyoming that are black. And I always ask these guys, you came from where? Georgia? You came from where? Virginia?
Who sent them?
The power, the institutionalized racism through the state. The state would not allow us to articulate or celebrate black leadership. Then they killed off the militant type, and I'm still militant because I always believe that you change attitudes with bullets, and you got to do it because that is America. That is America. And Americans and African Americans after the Civil War and after World War I and World War II were very Second Amendment prone. You never hear that, but it is true. So the other thing, I was raised in the Jewish community, and what I always heard, and I dated and loved them and always got fun. First of all, they are very, 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 very engrossing in their own, making sure everybody exists. You know a question they used to ask me? How come you people continue to serve the God of your enslaver? How in the world can you do that? And I just said, you know, that you've got a point there. The God that enslaved us, that helped this institutionalize this thing with this King James version of the Bible, where black is no good, everything is white, and everything, that's institutionalized racism that we have never defeated. So when Rapp and Stokely and Bond and even Martin Luther King from time to time started talking about that, and if you really want to study Martin Luther King, which I am studying historically, look at his last sermons. Look at his last rites. Look at what he was saying at the end. He was done with it. He said America will never change. So at my point, that institutionalized racism has been incorporated in our being. And again, one of the things that happened, instead of Magic Johnson and all those basketball players fighting for those poor black people in L.A. where Mr. Sterling was kicking them out of their apartments, the largest real estate owner in that area. They did nothing. And that's how it continues to go on.
Well, I just, on the God front, God didn't enslave us.
No, I just made the question is what they asked me.
And I just needed to correct you on something that I know Tim can elaborate, is that from the very beginning in this country, we had black Jeremiahs.
What?
Richard Allen, the very beginnings of this country, you had black preachers who were talking about.
Richard Allen started
that's
the African American
You had Maria Stewart. People need to read about Maria Stewart as a black woman who was speaking out against slavery, who was talking about God has never intended us to be enslaved and never intended a woman to be slave. So it wasn't, I agree with you that was an institutionalized racist interpretation of the scriptures, but by no means is there a white God and a white Jesus.
No, I didn't say that. Let me make it clear. Let me clear that up. That's not what they're saying.
And Richard Allen was saying that. That's where you got the African American, the AME Church was saying that in the very beginning.
Did not say that.
Go ahead,
but they took the King James Version of the Bible, and if you truly read it, they took that to actually use it to institutionalize slavery. Well, that's what they're saying. That is what they're saying. So how can you take that? Not God. Because we were right with all that stuff.
Because they were critiquing that.
That is correct.
That's what they were doing.
Yes.
I'm glad you clarified that.
Yes.
And if you're just joining us, we're talking about America and race with the Another View Roundtable pundits, Wil LaVeist, Bill Thomas, Carol Pretlow, and guest pundit Tim Seibles. Sherry joins us from Chesapeake. Hi, Sherry. You're on the air.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to say I'm an old white lady, and there's no such thing as these old, racism dying out with these old guys. My daughter's 25, and when Obama got elected, she heard many of her men that she knows in their early 30s, late 20s say, I hate that N-word. Mm-hmm. But it's not about his race, it's about his policies. They would always qualify that later, but their instant response, quickly out of their mouth, that's what it was. And so there's just, I don't know when it'll ever end, when people maybe embrace diversity. It's okay for everybody to be different. It's okay for some people to be poor. It's okay for some people to be on Social Security or disability. It's okay for people to sit on their porch, for God's sake. I mean, really, I'm just so sick of this. Everybody has to perform a certain way to be accepted as a race or whatever. It's like saying, well, even if you do perform that way, people still have their bigotry. But it's far from gone, and I don't know what it'll take. I think it's passed down from family to family. I think these young men that she listened to probably didn't even listen to the news. They picked up their beliefs and attitudes from those adults, that they grew up with. And it's going to be a long time. Okay. I do think the very youngest people, of course, each generation is getting a little better. But still, it was shocking to know that these young men were talking like this. It really surprised me when she told me about it.
Okay, Sherry, thanks so much. I appreciate your call. Thank you. I'll get some reaction from our panel. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think that racism would necessarily die out with these old men, but a certain style of racism, a certain explicit and stupidly articulated racism would die out. But sure, I mean, the fact is, of course, things are different for me than they were for my parents, and it was different for them than for their parents. Certainly there's some progress. The fact that Obama's elected, it wasn't just black folks that put him in the White House. Some white people are becoming enlightened. If that were not the case, we'd still be in the streets every day in fistfights. There has to be some sense that there is a gradual enlightenment that's taking place in this country. That does not mean there aren't going to be idiots like Rush Limbaugh or other people out there spouting every manner of nonsense regarding folks of color or women or God knows, they're out there. But You know, I
Wow.
just think you can see something. There's a shift of consciousness in this country. It's just, you know, it's going to take a long time. I don't imagine I'll be around to see the day when everyone's like, "What race? I don't even know this." I don't think that's going to be anytime soon.
So here's a question I have for you all: the role of the NAACP and all of this. And
Laughing.
you know, and I knew Bill was going to react that way. That's why I brought it up.
Jump down, turn
But-
around, pick up the cotton. Jump down.
Turn around, pick a bag of cotton.
But
Hey, I know that one, brother.
here's the thing. Here's the thing.
That
Because
is tragic.
Because now, first of all, I want to listen to a clip from the president of the NAACP, Leon Jenkins, explaining why they were pulling back the Lifetime Achievement Award.
The revelation that Mr. Sterling may have made comments in a phone conversation that was reminiscent of the ugly time in American history that contained elements of segregation and racial discrimination demands that the Los Angeles NAACP intention to honor Mr. Sterling for a lifetime body of work must be withdrawn, and the donation that he's given to the Los Angeles NAACP will be returned. There is a personal, economic, and social price that Mr. Sterling must pay for his attempt to turn back the clock on race relations. If these statements are not who Mr. Sterling is, then he should spend a sufficient amount of time that's necessary for in the African American community to prove that he is not the person those words portray him to be or suggest he may be.
Okay.
Well,
Will, let me let Will, and then I get to you, Carol.
All I know when I heard that, I'm here crying, y'all. I'm laughing. All I know is when I saw that, I said, I envision the ancestors, Martin, Malcolm, Sojourner Truth, all sitting around the table, listening to this and saying,
What?
N-word, please.
Oh, Lord. Carol.
I felt the same way, but on a more serious note, I wondered, had this incident not occurred, what was their criteria for deciding that he would get the award? But didn't they know about the situations with his housing? What? Why?
Well, hang on a minute. Because and we don't use that word in this room. Okay, let's listen to their reasoning for. This is the NAACP. I want to play the other clip where they explain the criteria.
Okay.
Given Mr. Sterling's track record as a landlord, particularly among African Americans, given the Elgin Baylor lawsuit, why was the NAACP honoring him?
The first thing is that when the NAACP found out about the lawsuits, the NAACP called Mr. Sterling up and said, if there is any of the allegations in that lawsuit that is true, you need to pay those people, you need to make amends. And that case was settled.
What was the criteria used to nominate Mr. Sterling for this recognition?
This year? Well, what we do, we look at the body of work that he's done. And what we specifically looked at, we looked at all of the sports franchises in LA. And we look at how involved are all these organizations in the community. Mr. Sterling organization has, on a consistent basis, brought in numerous minorities and inner city kids to games. Almost every game, there is a section where there are young people there. He also has, over the years we looked at, contributed to a lot of minority charities, including the NAACP. So we looked at comparing that with all of the other LA franchises. His organization gave more money to the community, to the minority community than the others.
You know, we did a show last month with Dr. Keith Newby, and we were talking about smoking and the marketing efforts of tobacco companies to the to African American publications in particular, in terms of ads. So, when does it come a responsibility again on these Black organizations, publications, and so forth to say, you know what, I know we need your money, but I'm not taking it? Bill.
It's real simple. You can be a 50 cents slave or $10 million a year slave. It's all the mentality. They knew who this man was. The NAACP, and there's a lot of good people, a lot of good soldiers, and my parents are all involved in this, but it ain't what it used to be. They're just taking money and building up their own, and gracing their own organizations. They're not doing anything. LA has, here's what, and I know I'm going too far, but here's what's breaking my heart now. These 400 young ladies in Nigeria, black ladies that were kidnapped or raped or whatever else, 40 black people last Easter weekend in Chicago were shot. 5 died. 3 were black. It happens every weekend. The little black boy in Richmond who tried to save his daughter from getting beat up and murdered. This is institutionalized racism that we're perpetuating on ourselves. Lastly, and Will, I think, will agree with me on this, we have black leaders in academia, in industry, that treat the same thing. I've heard black leaders say, we have too many black people in this department. We have too many black people at our institution as vice presidents and stuff. I mean, a majority institutions. They're not reaching out for the very best. It's a mentality that is just engrossed us, and then white folks look at us and say, well, if you'll do that to each other, what do you want us to do? You take our money, you take our, he's prancing around here with this little cute woman. Ain't nobody said anything about that. Magic Johnson's indignant as he is, taking pictures with where's his wife? Isn't that insulting? If you saw your husband with some little 20 or 30-year-old wannabe girl who's after money and stuff, and he's going to say that he knows what's going on, it's insulting. And that is what we have become. And the NAACP, maybe even Bill Thomas, we have become immoral in accepting these kinds of tragedies and not doing anything about it.
You know what? Speaking of Magic Johnson, let's see what Gerald has to say from Norfolk. Hi, Gerald. You're on the air.
Yeah, how you doing?
Okay.
Yeah, I heard Bill Thomas make this statement that why is Magic Johnson walking with this young lady and he's a married man? Magic Johnson's a public figure. She frequents the Staples Center. He obviously frequents the Staples Center. He's insinuating that there's something inappropriate about that. I'm sure he would not do something in the public eye after what he's already gone through 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was a whole lot, too.
Yes, it was. And the other thing is that, this young lady, Siviano, frequents the Staples Center, so she's very well known there. And in the same incident happened with Akon. Akon said he was there with his wife and his 2 kids, and she came up and sat beside him, and they was in the conversation, and the same thing happened. That Mr. Sterling said, "Why are you sitting with that dark-skinned man?"
Okay.
But my point again is that there's nothing inappropriate about that.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you so much, Gerald, for your call. We appreciate that. Let me get a reaction from the roundtable. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we get a little distracted off the point. I mean, your earlier point was, about the responsibility of taking money from, people who express these kinds of opinions. And to be honest, it's a tough situation because if you are heading up an organization like NAACP or Urban League, funds are tight. You're trying to do work. And we've also been talking about institutional racism where these people who are heading and leading these organizations have mortgages to pay, children to put through college, and difficulty getting positions in other organizations. Now, I would point out, and I'm not making an excuse for it, I'm just being honest about it. I would point out that the author of Gone with the Wind, Mary Mitchell, she supported the HBCU. A lot of people don't know this. She put a lot of black students through school, through the money that she made from that book that had such a impact, from and a lot of people would say negative impact in the culture. So in this complex web of how our culture has been developed, you're going to have these relationships. You got to be a little fair on people, but you got to call them out and laugh at them because that was certainly some roundabout. Come on now. Come on now.
Here's the other issue. The whole idea of the fact that Sterling said these comments allegedly said these comments, in the privacy of his own home. Now, from a media perspective, should the media have leaked these tapes to begin with? I mean, does the man or any of us have a right to express ourselves when we're within the confines of our own home?
From a journalism standpoint?
Yeah.
If I'm a journalist or I'm the newspaper and I get this information from a public figure, absolutely.
Wow.
Public's right to know, absolutely. Got it from, he's a public figure, he's in a position of power and influence in the community, absolutely.
Wow. So you don't think because he was at home thinking he was just talking, because she apparently brought these tapes out.
How did we learn about Watergate? I mean, how do we learn about any of the things that go on that are significant in our lives and our culture? This is what journalists do. If you're going to give me a tape with somebody in a position of influence who's saying the things that he's saying, and I got evidence to roll with it, I'm rolling, because the public has the right to know. And we see how this has played out. You don't hear him saying, I'm going to sue TMZ. He has no basis.
Okay, hold on then, because today another clip was released, and this time to radio. Lisa, what's the name of that group that it was released to? It was an internet group that Radar Online is the name of it. Let's play that clip.
Okay.
You think I'm a racist? You think I have anything in the world but love for everybody? You don't think that. You know I'm not a racist.
What about when I hear that tape, though? That tape I heard.
I grew up in East L.A. East L.A., you die to get out of there. I got out of East L.A. I was the president of the high school there. I mean, and I'm a Jew, and 50% of the people there were black and 40% were Hispanic. I mean, how could you think I'm a racist, knowing me all these years? How can you be in this business and be a racist? Do you think I tell the coach to get white players, or to get the best player he can get?
The best player he can get.
Breaks my heart that Magic Johnson, a guy that I respect so much, wouldn't stand up and say, well, let's get the facts. Let's get him and talk to him. Nobody tried.
I mean, I think they're trying to force you to sell it. That's the thing.
You can't force someone to sell property in America.
Now, again, we don't know who he was talking to, and this was leaked to another group, this Radar Online. They let it out. Same thing, Will? So
again, somebody in his circle leaked these original tapes, brought them to you. Verify the tapes. Is this
so?
Is who
if
the
you are a
person
public figure, you are fair game.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Your perspective, Bill.
That's how it goes.
It's very hard to.
Go ahead, Tim.
It's very hard to be someone with that kind of wealth and power and say things like that and
wealth
have
and power
but
makes
no one
differences?
should know. Well, yes. Well, in terms of what this person, I mean, the kind of influence this cat has in the culture. It matters. Now, some knucklehead Archie Bunker is in his garage saying this. It's not really news.
No.
We expect it.
You can't make money from it, is what you're saying.
And we expect we expect that a certain level of ignorance from people who are uneducated. We expect it. This man is a lawyer, theoretically well educated.
He's 80 years old.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, you're a lawyer, you're a billionaire, you control God knows how much property in California, and if you're and owns the Clippers, right? And if you're a stone cold, or what appears to be a stone cold racist, I think people should know that. So whether or not they want to support your team,
this is just an old man who's thinking some old thoughts. And you're arguing against yourself. You said, well, Archie Bunker's private conversations aren't of value. Yes, they are. People should hear them. What Archie Bunker's comments are, they're not of any value to the public, where people can exploit them to make money. So it all gets down to the money. This man is an 80-year-old guy who's lived his life. He said out of East L.A., and I noticed he said he was a Jew, and that's the way they look at each other. And, and so those things come up. Lord knows if somebody got in my house and taped me, I guess I got to stop talking.
I was going to say, they don't even need to tape you.
You say everything. So
I'm offended by all this talk about he's old. And so
he's old.
My father is about to be 90 years old.
Thank
he
God.
is still learning.
Good for him.
He is still growing. people who have been in this country for years have been fighting for justice and equality. That's justice and equality is not a new concept.
But does he have a right to his
because,
opinion?
hold on, I'm talking. He certainly does.
Okay.
But to say that he's old and so
old.
he can't quite understand the nuances of treating people as that's offensive. That's offensive to people who are older.
Don't bother me.
They've been around for a while. But Carol, here's the other thing that I want you to react to, because from a female perspective, I have trouble understanding how Mr. Sterling can wrap his mind around the criticism of his girlfriend for sitting next to a black man, but yet she is Hispanic and African American.
Yes.
So I don't get the disconnect there. What do you think?
That relationship sort of confused me based on some of her statements. First of all, at one point, one source that I heard said that she said, well, there was a professional relationship between them. Well, if it's a professional relationship, he's given her cars and homes and all of that. That kind of confused me. And then I was looking at it strictly gender-wise from his wife's standpoint. And wait a minute, you're giving this person who is in a professional relationship all of this, and I'm your wife, and even though we may be estranged, isn't that... I'm troubled by that. And I'm also troubled by the fact that if this was even in a professional relationship, you have some boundaries, things you don't talk about, you don't reveal, you don't give to the media. So
but
I'm
Tim,
confused.
Why is it then from a man's perspective? Why is it okay if his woman is the same group that he is saying don't bring these black men? I don't get that.
Well, that's an old story though, isn't it? I mean, from way back, right? I mean, white men historically have not necessarily found black women unattractive behind closed doors.
Absolutely.
But in public, the whole idea about race and the way they've imagined supremacy, that complicates the public persona quite a bit.
Okay, we got time, I think, to get one more call in. Jackie joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Jackie. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to comment. This program today mostly is focused on racism, and I find it interesting that the comment was made, he's not white, he's Jewish.
Yeah, I made that comment.
And that's a very racist comment to me. Jews are represented in many races, and it's sad that none of your other panelists have challenged that comment.
Okay, let's let them react to that. Thank you for your call, Jackie.
It really goes to show you how narrow-minded people are. I was raised in a Jewish community. I have been around Jews probably more than I have been around black folks. So I'm very, 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 and I love them. And in fact, my first little date with a little Jewish lady. And I see how together they are and things they do. I've expressed it on this program for years and all my whole life. So it's nothing to do. But Jews see themselves as Jews.
Well,
exactly
in the
what
clip
Mr. Sterling, in the clip that you just heard, Mr. Sterling referred to himself as a Jew, a very proud body of people. And in fact, I get involved in religious stuff and everything else. So no, everybody wants to think narrow. I am the most diverse person in the world. And I hope when I'm 80, I can find me somebody, Jewish, whatever, like that. No, to be serious with you, no. I have no more respect than Jewish folks than everybody else have. Nothing. I don't care. Race doesn't bother me. I've always said it's not race, it's about power. It's about economics. It's about being able to control your own destiny. And you do that through having armies, having governments, and having things that are going to support your positions. It doesn't do anything to do with race. Okay. Race is not my problem.
So we're under less than 5 minutes left in the show. My question to you all is this. Are we a more tolerant society in terms of the races? And is it really driven more by your socioeconomic status than it is by anything else? Just your thoughts, Carol.
I think it's driven more by socioeconomic status because I think there are a lot of people who categorize people, and unfortunately a lot of African Americans are poor and uneducated, so they characterize them by that rather than thinking about the social dynamics per se. They're not thinking about that per se.
Tim?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure. I mean, it's a complicated question, of course.
Yeah.
There are people who probably, if you're a true racist, it doesn't matter what socioeconomic class the people are you want to exclude. But certainly in practical terms, as we live in the world, if you're a black person driving a Mercedes-Benz, perhaps you are far less likely to be harassed by the police than someone driving a hoopty. You know what I mean? Certainly there are certain practical applications where socioeconomics are concerned, but I mean, again, there's a lot involved. I mean, I just think...
there's a lot involved. Okay, Bill, real quick, we got 2 minutes left.
I think it's pretty much over. You look at our children, and you see who they're dating and who they're marrying and vice versa. This is not a problem with them. It truly isn't. It's more a problem with me because I always wanted, you find your guys and your girls are going to hook up with another black woman. That's not going to happen. I think this is over. It's socio-economical. We have to do the kind of things to make us American. I think we'll all be okay and leave this race thing alone. It's all going to evolve.
Okay, Will.
Yeah, I think that we're more tolerant. I think that one of the problems is that we didn't really go through a process like what happened in Germany coming out of the, out of World War II and the Holocaust. A lot of Germans are very ashamed and have dealt with that situation, and so they're a lot more conscious of it and not something that they try to carry around. We haven't really effectively head-on dealt with it, and so it keeps cropping up. You got here in the South, you got people, talking about the South shall rise again, and it's about heritage and all of this. We haven't really effectively dealt with it. And if we had, and we do it in our schools, I think that we would be a lot further along.
So we think our young people are going to be the catalyst.
Yeah,
in terms of making the change. Okay. Roundtable, we are out of time. Thank you guys so very, very much. That's Wil LaVeist, Bill Thomas, Carol Pretlow, and Tim. You survived your first roundtable. Did you have fun?
So I did. I had a good time. I'm only sorry it didn't last 2 hours.
Absolutely. And Tim Seibles.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy
Mother's Day to everyone.
Significant others and all.
And we will be right back.
I'm with Marcellus, and you all are checking out Another View on WHRV 89.5. Don't go anywhere. Check us out.
And that's our show for this Friday. If you'd like to hear it again or share it with a friend, please go to our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. Sign up for our eView newsletter that keeps you up to date on show topics. And we're on Facebook, so like us. Next week, a one-on-one conversation with Congressman Scott Ridgell. He'll bring us up to date on happenings in Washington and his thoughts on wooing African Americans to the Republican Party. Plan to call in with your questions to the congressman. And I will let you know that the congressman and I have been spending probably the better part of a year trying to find a date where we could make this happen. And he requested to come on to Another View. So I'm really, really excited about speaking with him. So that is next Friday. Join us, please, then. I want to say very, very happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, as our roundtable is already done. So if you are a mother who is either biologically a mom or you're a mom because of your love of another, we want to wish you the very best. Have a fabulous day. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Austin Bell answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.